Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, folks, I hope you're having a fantastic day and an even better week. In this video, folks, we're going to talk a little bit about are we becoming or are we being warriors? Warriors of ideas. Yes, warriors of ideas. Marinate on that for a second. Warriors of ideas sounds pretty straightforward. We're fighting for good ideas, and that's true. And that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about. So, yeah, warriors of ideas, right? It's real easy, going back in history to see where warriors were fighting, physically, and in modern times too. Sadly, we still have that occur. But in organizations where we often come together, most people to come together to operate as teams to accomplish a common goal, right, for our customers, which end up being not only our peers and the customers at large, but also in the end, your families and yourself, right? Everybody's your customer, essentially. But in that effort, right, to do all of that, how can we be better or become warriors of ideas? We've all been developed in different, and we're all coming from life at different stages of our development. You may be early in your professional life or in life period. You may be middle of your career. You may be senior in your career. It really just depends. But we can all look back, generally speaking, and go, okay, there was a time maybe when you had ideas, really good ideas, and maybe you were a kid. Maybe you were a really young person, whatever. And the adults of the time may have kind of just, whatever, and just kind of, I won't say shunned you, but they just kind of, we got this, whatever, right? and what happens is because we essentially are products of our conditioning, especially if we don't fight that conditioning, through our development, is we're more apt to what? Fall into those ruts of, well, I'm just not going to offer ideas because nobody wants to hear my ideas anyway. And that's a sad place to be, right? I hope that's not going on for people who are up and coming in, young people and then younger in their career and so on. Anybody really, but definitely not during those formative stages in life, right? Even in the professional side of the house, because you want people to have ideas because ideas are what drive innovation, right? Creative collaboration, all of these things, right? And this does not only allows us to better serve our customers, but it also elevates our operation. It elevates all of our lives, right? The domino effect, right? That domino, those dominoes move the more collaborative and creative that we are. And the less, I should say, the more that people get shut down in their, when they've got a lot of really good ideas, then it becomes a struggle because it's a lot harder. It's kind of like running. It's easier to just slow to it from a run if you've ever ran. I ran Bloomsday, which is in the Northwest, and a couple times. And there's what they call Doomsday Hill. And you get to Doomsday Hill, I don't remember exactly now, but I don't know, it's about halfway-ish, maybe or so, through the run. It's a 10K. And, of course, it is a grade, too, right? So you see some people walking it, some people trying to maintain a pace through it, but it is a tough grade. When I've ran it, I just kept running, even though when you're going up a grade like that, running just feels like jogging or just about like a high stepping walk, really. But because, and I don't know if there's any science behind it, but they say that it's easier to jog than it is to stop and then to try to start again, to not stop, but to walk, say, and then to start running again. Right now, there may be times you have to do that, especially if you're a senior runner like myself. But that it's easier, right? That if you just slow down to a jog versus stop. Well, when we've shut people down with their ideas, right? then what are we doing? We're basically having them walk up those steep grades. Now, the grade was going to be there anyway. The challengers are there anyway, but now I don't want to hear from them either, right? And you don't. It doesn't even have to be something that you're announcing. You may not announce that I don't want to get anybody's ideas. I don't. You may not even be doing that, but it might be your actions, right? It might be the lack of having an idea program. It may be the lack of really inviting the broader team into your collaborative efforts, right? Your brainstorming sessions and so on, right? I have a thing. It's like, I don't care if it's the the newest person in the place. If somebody has an idea, throw it on the table. Best idea wins. It doesn't matter what your role or what your if you're an officer of the company versus you're a brand new person. Okay, the best ideas win. And when you have that kind of philosophy, then you're going to get more ideas, folks, because you're telling people, look, there might be a time when we have to jog, right? But that doesn't mean we want to stop, and it doesn't mean I don't want your ideas. There may be slim and times where we need to, we have to kind of rein it in because maybe we don't have the funds to invest because we just spent this for that and that for this, right? All the things that go on, all the factors that can happen in an organization, right? But it doesn't mean I don't want your ideas. So we always want the ideas because some of those ideas can be immediately, things that we can implement immediately, and some maybe not so much, right? Maybe they cost, right? So, but to be a warrior of ideas also, think of it from the team member perspective now, okay? If you're a team member and you have a lot of good ideas, we also need to keep in mind that we have to channel these ideas into the appropriate place, right? We can't just be throwing them out there and then if somebody can't listen because they're functionally doing other work or they're doing something else, that doesn't mean somebody didn't want to hear your ideas, right? That's a cop-out, right? That's a cop-out. If your idea is worthy enough to think about it, it's worthy enough for you to write it down, right? Pretty simple, right? And these days with computers everywhere, it's easy for you to text or email your boss or whatever, right? Your manager, supervisor, whoever, and go, hey, this is an idea I had. Boom, right? Timestamp. There you go. So, we don't want to be complacent. You notice I'm not using the lazy word, right? I'm saying complacent. We don't want to be complacent, okay? We want to make sure that we're putting these ideas in the appropriate buckets in the timely way, because we have some really good ideas that apply overall doesn't mean we can just stop the work at this moment, right? I can't just go, whoop, hey, I have an idea. The next time we pour, say you're a builder of homes and you're putting the roof on, but all of a sudden you have a great idea about the foundation. Well, the foundation's been laid for weeks, or whatever, for a long time. The foundation's been laid for quite some time. And now you have a brilliant idea about the foundation. It may be a brilliant idea, but the timing is off, okay? We're on the roof, Hey, when we finish the roof, then let's, or finish today's job, which might be working on the roof, then let's document that and let's remember, and then we'll tackle that on the next one, right? Or prior to the next one. But what happens is people think, oh, well, I have this great idea. Oh, well, I can't address it now. Well, forget it, right? Because we can be complacent and they don't write it down or they don't carry it forward, and then it slips off their radar, right? And then a great idea is lost. Not because somebody didn't want the idea, it's timing and the appropriateness of how you handle the ideas, okay? Now, some ideas, the timing is right. If we're working on the foundation or about to, and you have a great idea, provided we can implement it because of the stage we're in, right? It may be perfect timing. That's what, that's great. Or better than perfect timing would be before, well before that aspect, right? Whatever you're working on. So, you got to give folks a chance to receive, right? Receive these good ideas, receive these brilliant ideas. I've had people had some really great ideas, right? And we You get them slotted in, and then work that list. That's the other thing about site leaders and any other leader, up and around an organization is you create a list, you do brainstorming sessions, you come up with lists of things and you're prioritizing it and tackling it in the most intelligent way possible. And of course, cost, right? You got to work around that scenario. But you start tackling that list, you make that list transparent. And then you go, hey, we tackled this, we tackled that, we tackled this, we fixed that, we fixed this, this is on our list. You will have more people, you will have more things added to the list. Now, if for the most part, you were spending a lot of time tackling, implementing really great ideas that were helping an organization get better, oh my gosh, right? What a problem. What a problem. That's the best problem you could ever hope for, okay? But that's not typically the challenge. The challenge is that people aren't warriors, aren't warriors for ideas, right? They're not doing that. They've withheld because of prior work conditioning, might have been their upbringing, who knows, right? But the conditioning that they've had up to that point, and hopefully it's not your organization now, but they've essentially been kind of, whatever, kind of pushed off to the side a little bit, whatever form that took, right? And so now they don't contribute. And so now when you want to have warriors for ideas, right? Now it's harder to get them going because they've gone not only to a walk, but to a crawl, and they're probably sitting down on that big hill, right? They're not just like, nobody wants to listen to me. I guess I'll just sit here on this hill. Woe is me, right? And that's where, as team members, we have to kind of pick ourselves up, right? Dust ourselves off, right? There's a certain level of perseverance. We're not going to call you a warrior for ideas if you're, just going to sit on the sidewalk and go, woe is me, right? No. You have to have a fortitude, a stick-to-itiveness, right? And a dedication to, and a commitment to what you're doing. If you're on board with what you're doing in the organization you're in, otherwise it's a telltale. If you don't contribute, if you're not participating, if you're withholding, and it's pretty obvious when people are withholding, it's pretty obvious at that point that you're not on board with the organization. Now, what does your quality and your productivity look like? Does it follow suit? Right? Is it following suit? Are you, barely struggling to even do the productivity? Are you just easily distracted? I mean, as team members, we got to check ourselves, right? If you're not checking yourself, somebody else is gonna check you, right? They're gonna check you, and it's gonna be pretty obvious whether you're a warrior for ideas, much less anything else in the organization, right? So you gotta be willing to fight for the customer, right? Not just, and I don't mean, when I say fight for the customer and be a warrior for ideas, that's exactly what I mean, okay? Not actually fight, okay? Don't get into conflict at work and look, you may have a great idea. A peer of yours may have a really great idea. They may be equally great ideas. And maybe your manager, whoever, has to select, the pathway forward. That's, ultimately they have to make that selection. They make that selection, boom, they go that path. Live with it, get on board with it. You need to be dispassionate about it, right? Unlock your emotions from it. Did you do your due diligence to provide what you think was a solid idea? Yes. Can you back it up with supporting information? I hope so. But if you did even, right, and say it was great, very clear, but yet they went another path, that's fine. Be dispassionate. That's the direction they picked. That was picked, and go with that. Best idea wins. Now, it may have been a tie, right? It may have been close. And there may have been a nuanced reason why. And hopefully, if you're a site leader, you would express, hey, we're going to go with this, and this is why. They're awfully close, and it isn't to say any of these ideas are bad or anything like that. It's just I got to pick one, and this is the one we're going to go with. Okay, folks? So, kudos for everybody doing their due diligence. And if you're a site leader and so on, you should be supporting your folks when they contribute well to your idea pool, right? So keep that in mind. So there's nuances to being a warrior for ideas, right? Make sure they're our ideas, not somebody else's ideas, right? If you're a site leader or others in a leadership capacity, don't be collecting up 50, great ideas, and then you just happen to lay off 20 people, the following season, and then you pull those ideas out, implement those, and now you're the hero for the broader organization because look at all the great things that he or she implemented, right? Yeah, that's pretty unethical, right? Pretty cheeseball. Sure, it happens, but hopefully not. Hopefully, you're not one of those. So, and if you see these things occur, call it out, right? This is why you have, HR and ethical ways to approach these things. Call it out in the appropriate ways. Not again, the best ideas win, but we don't want to be stealing other people's ideas. Now, if you're going to use their ideas, then you need to make it known that, hey, these are the ideas that they had. And there's nothing wrong with reaching back out and say, hey, we used your idea. Here's a gift card or a this or that, whatever, don't be cheap. Don't be cheap. You might have had an idea in there that made you 10 grand, I don't know, your scale of your business and how much money it brings in is going to be different for everyone. But that idea may have brought you 10 or 50 grand, in a quarter, and you give them a $25 gift card, right? Let's not be cheap and cheesy, okay? let's take care of people. Let's do the right thing. Let's rise above, right? If you're going to have warriors, and if you're going to be a leader of a bunch of warriors for ideas, then what does that mean? Then you need to be on top of your game too as a leader in any capacity within an organization. So just keep that in mind. So be warriors for ideas, be positive, be hopeful, have an optimistic, and see things as an opportunity. Don't see the glass as half empty, half full, all the half-halves. See it as if there's if it's half of anything, then that means there's opportunity to fill it up, right? There's opportunity to fill it up, and you do that, and you'd be surprised all the really cool and amazing things you can come up with, and it's kind of fun once you get going on it. Become a warrior for ideas. Then you start to feel like you're like, you know what? I'm way more satisfied at work. Why is that? I don't know. It just opened up a creative flow, and this creative flow now. I feel more purposeful in improving things than I do in just doing the work, although doing the work is the vital thing, right? But I'm also doing this too, and it's fun, it's amazing, it's very rewarding, and I'm helping my teammates as well. It's making their jobs more seamless and all the things, right? There's removing constraints left and right. It's so make a game of it, have fun with it. So being a warrior for ideas, there's a lot of room for fun. Okay, so it's not just all seriousness, although, it can be. There's some analysis has to go into this, but let's have fun doing it. All right, folks, hope you're having a fantastic day. Hit that good green domino 3 to 5 times a day or more to uplift, motivate, inspire, and just encourage one another. When we do this, not only helping to transform culture, but we're transforming our own lives. But don't forget, we can't transform anything on the outside if we're not willing to transform on the inside. So important. All right, folks, have a fantastic day. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.